Pannus in, a sack's full of trouble. Leave it to me, Dad, shouted Pannus, as he raced up the stairs with his faithful hounded Masha at his heels. You sit down, I'll collect Mum's breakfast tray. Dad sit down with a mighty bump, the shock was too much for him. But Pannus had just offered to help. It wasn't possible. The next moment, there was a loud knocking on the front door with a cry of, "Post," as Dad opened the door and was swept off his feet by an avalanche of post letters. "What's happening?" cried Dad. "Why have I got all this post?" "I can guess," said the postman. "They'll all be letters of complaint about your son Pannus. Like this one, from me?" "Oh no," said Dad in a weak voice. "Oh yes," returned the postman. "Next time Pannus decide to have a sack race, he is not to use any of my sacks, especially when they are full." "Double trouble," Dad muttered to himself as he started to arrange the post into a neat pile in the hallway. Before he could finish, Pannus came zooming down the stairs. "Wahey," cried Pannus. "Mum's breakfast tray makes a smashing sledge. Hey Dad, look out!" But it was too late. There was a flurry of things sent flying, and Pannus, dog and Dad ended up in a mighty mess of mail, milk and marmalade. "Lucky you were there, Dad, to help me stop," said Pannus. Although the expression of anger and purple coloring of his father's face told him that it might not be so lucky after all. "I'll just go and," Dad made a noise like an erupting volcano. "So that's why you went for the tray. I should have known." Pannus was grabbed by the scuff of the neck and placed on top of the mountain of mail. "Now we'll see what some of these letters have to say about your misusing." Dad took a letter from the pile. "It seems that Cosworth's Cream Cake Company invited your school to take a tour of their factory." "That's right," agreed Pannus. "They did." "Yes, but they didn't really expect you to turn up on a pogo stick. You managed to cover everyone in cream by the time you'd finished." Dad picked up another letter and groaned. "Pannus, why did you have a pea shooter fight outside the kitchens of the posh restaurant?" "It wasn't my fault, the windows were open," protested Pannus. "Anyway, what's wrong with green pea custard?" "Farmer Browner was a good friend of mine," said Dad looking at another letter. "I was only trying to help," insisted Pannus. Farmer Browner's scarecrow wasn't scaring the birds away and his crops were being eaten. "So I tried out my idea, and it worked too. I scared the birds." "Yes, but you also scared everyone else who is passing. Most people don't expect to see a scarecrow suddenly come to life." "Wienertown Harriers have written in to say how upset they were that you spoiled their race," went on Dad. "Oh, but Dad, I only moved their race direction sign so they could cool down a bit. All that running was making them hot, and a splash in the river was what they needed," said Pannus. "I dread to think what's coming next," moaned Dad. He picked up a pink-scented note tied with a ribbon. "That's got to be from Walter," murmured Pannus under his breath. "This is from that nice boy named Walter next door," said Dad. "He tells me that he was trying to restuff his teddy when you came along." "And finished the job for him," said Pannus. "Was it wise to use bone-shaped doggy chocolates?" growled Dad. Masha and the rest of the dogs in the neighborhood chased the poor boy for miles. Pannus looked at the huge pile of letters and realized that Dad could go on for hours. He moved his hands and found that the split milk had turned some of the paper into a sticky pulp. Dad shook his head in despair. "All you can do is be a minus. Why don't you model yourself on Walter and take up a nice quiet hobby?" "Pannus, you listening? Model?" Pannus repeated, staring at the mushy mess that was still on his fingers. He jumped up quickly. "That's it. Great idea, Dad. I'll take up model making. I'll start at once." Dad was so amazed that he tumbled off the pile of letters he was sitting on. "Model making, you? Off you go then." Pannus hurried into the garden shed and returned with the hose. "What are you doing?" asked Dad, looking suspiciously at the hose. "It's for my new hobby," explained Pannus. "You'll see in a minute." Before Dad could say anything else, Masha turned on the kitchen tap, and a jet of water drenched the mail mountain. Pannus took great care to see that every one of the letters received a thorough soaking. At last, the hose was turned off. Dad and Pannus surveyed the soft and gooey gunch that covered the hall floor. "There," said Pannus triumphantly. "This will make great papier macho for my model making." "But," began Dad, realizing that all the letters of complaint had been destroyed. "Don't worry," continued Pannus cheerfully, "I'll clear anything away. I'm going to work in the garden." Armed with latter, pots of red and black paint and a paper sludge, Pannus was soon busily occupied in the front garden. And here it is, the model that Pannus made. Isn't it beauty? Dad didn't think so. What a monstrosity! A new hobby indeed. I might have known that you'd have some trick up your sleeve. "Ha ha," chuckled Pannus. "You should know I've only got one hobby, minusing."